Be honest, how many of you guys thought I was going to save Call of Duty for the final week of this series? Don't lie. I'm sure plenty of you thought it was going to be the finale, or at least in the final week of this motherfucker. Shit, even the fucking YouTube order is probably thinking the same exact thing. Go fuck yourself, man. Although, I can't lie. For the final 15 videos, I've been debating about what order I want to put these motherfuckers in, because I have a bit of a scheduling problem now that I got to the end of the series. And the problem is that I have 6 Call of Duty games, but I've only been posting the series during the 5 weekdays. So I had a number of thoughts on how I was going to show Call of Duty at the end of the series. I thought about doing them maybe 6 days in a row and posting one up on a Saturday. I even thought about doing Call of Duty 4 on a Friday as a preview for the upcoming week to follow, but I just couldn't justify the effects that it was going to have on the other videos. I did like the idea of separating out Call of Duty 4 from the other games since this was the best of the group, but in the end, I decided on the final order of the final 15 videos that we're going to start with Call of Duty 4. That means Call of Duty Ghosts will be next Monday at the start of a week with different material. Now, oddly enough, later today is going to be the worldwide multiplayer reveal for Advanced Warfare. Now, I certainly didn't plan this shit out ahead of time. It just happened that Activision decided to pick the same exact date as me to post up their bullshit. As much as I thought about changing the date of when I would post Call of Duty, today was going to be a Call of Duty day no matter what, depending on how the schedule fell. So, that's just pure luck, and Activision is stealing my thunder as always. Now, at the start of the video, I showed my online stats from the moment that I logged into the game before playing it one last time. In each one of the Call of Duty videos this week, I will be showing you guys my stats as to where I left off in the game. So you're going to see the massive differences in stats per game, and in each one, I'm going to be explaining the crazy differences you find because the stories behind the stats will vary greatly depending on how I feel about the motherfucker. Anyways, I've been saying this for all my years on YouTube, and I will say this until another game comes along and tops it, but this was the best Call of Duty multiplayer game and campaign, hands down. I don't give a shit what you think about Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, or any other game in the series so far. There is nothing that tops what Call of Duty 4 did online. Nothing. There is no game in this series that is more important than this one, and by the end of the videos this week, you guys will see that I proved my point on this very easily. Now, oddly enough, this was a game that I really had no intentions of purchasing. Before Call of Duty 4, I vaguely heard of the name Call of Duty and probably even confused that shit with Medal of Honor at the time. You know, I never really paid attention to that shit, other than knowing it was some sort of World War II PC game at the time. Obviously, that's not an accurate assessment of the game, but hey, that's what I thought about the franchise. I didn't know any better. So when the game came out in 2007, I didn't know anything about it. Completely oblivious to it, and had no clue the game even existed. I would say right around the time of Thanksgiving, Going Postal mentioned to me that he was playing a game at his friend's house against other people online called Call of Duty 4. I didn't know what the fuck it was, and the first online game I played was Resistance Fall of Man. I sucked at that game, so I didn't bother with that shit. Then another friend of mine mentioned that he got the game, and he was playing online, and it was incredibly addicting. At the time, I really didn't have a decent library of games. I had my 3 original games, I had a shitty NCAA football game, and Heavily Sourced, so I decided to buy it and give it a try. I mean, the fuck do I know? My friends have recommended it. I needed something. So I turned the motherfucker on, I played the campaign, and I thought it was fantastic, and I'll talk more about the campaign in a minute. I thought it was a great action-packed, frenetic-paced game that made something nobody else had made at the time. I figured that's what all the fuss was about, but again, my friends told me the action was all online. Turn on the multiplayer portion of the game and see what all the fun was about. So right around Christmas, New Year's or so, I turned on Call of Duty 4 multiplayer for the first time. And I believe I told this story, but I'm going to tell it one last time. I will never forget my first 2 games that I played. My very first game was on Backlot. Now I got fucked up badly. I mean badly. I didn't even get a single kill. And I went something like 0-15 or 0-16, whatever the fuck. I then played a second game on Overgrown, and again, I did horrible. But in that game, I at least managed to get 1 kill, and I will never forget it because the dude had his back to me, and I was able to kill him shooting a whole clip into his ass with my awful aim. In the final 30 seconds of the game, I was something awful, like 1-13, 1-14, whatever the fuck it was. And the game was actually pretty close. And I felt bad for my team because I was so horrible. So for the final 30 seconds of the game, I literally hid out of sight. No joke, I remember I was being so conscious of the fact that I was the reason my team was losing. So I hid in the final seconds, hoping to not die and cost them the game. I was at the broken wall next to the gas station on Overgrown, just waiting for those last seconds to count down. After the game, I took out the game, not certain if I wanted to return. I had my fun, don't get me wrong, but I sucked at the game. And that right there is what propelled me to try it again. Yes, I did suck at this game, but I don't suck at video games. I find ways of improving, and to me, this was a challenge. I like playing online. I didn't have anything else to play at the time, so what the fuck else was I gonna do? So I did what any competition-obsessed person would do. I researched how to get better. That was before YouTube was the main source of videos and scumbags giving bullshit tips on how to camp and headshot glitch like a douche for KDR. I went to the main source. I went to the Infinity Ward forums to get hints and tips on how to play. And while I was there, I met a whole bunch of people who were there to either learn from the game or have fun while playing with friends. The majority of these guys are still people that I play with today, and I met most of them on the Infinity Ward forums all those years ago. Hatred, Bike Crazy, Mr. Sulu, along with some other people who've left the series and don't play this shit, you know, like Jonathan Addy, Jeep Man, Smarties, Petium, Ric Flair. All these guys that have been on my friends list for all these years, I met them on the Infinity Ward forums. People you might see logging into games every now and then on my friends list up in the corner, I met them while I was playing Call of Duty 4. Now, in playing with them, I got better. In playing in parties with people who communicated, I improved my game slowly but surely. Then I started to raise my kill-death ratio, my accuracy, my points per game, the challenges I needed to do. I got better just by playing with better players and trading information. You know, things like, this is where to set up shop, this is the route to take at the start of the game, this is a spot enemies won't see you when you're trying to capture the flag. And then one day, I finally broke even on my kill-death ratio. Never forget it too, I was closing in on a breaking even point, and then I played headquarters on Shipment. Oh, the days of Shipment, man. Anyways, I went 55 and 10, I checked my KDR afterwards, and sure enough, I had finally broken even in kills. All those months of playing with friends had finally paid off, and I was at the even point for the first time. The more I played, the more I improved, until one day, my stats mysteriously rolled back. Some of my challenges were undone, some of my gun attachments relocked. I have no fucking idea to this day what happened, but I went from a 1.25 KDR all the way back down to under 1 again. I lost a shitload of kills, but my deaths stayed relatively the same. I lost challenges I completed, yet I never prestige. I was pissed the fuck off. So, I had to work my ass off to get all those challenges back and all those kills back. Losing that shit pissed me off, but at the same time, it fueled me to come back and get back to where I was in the first place. Eventually I did, but at that point, I stopped caring about stats in the game. I cared more about the challenges. I wanted to complete all the challenges in the game, and somehow, I managed to complete every single one. And because of my pursuit of a better kill-death ratio and all the challenges, I never prestiged. I never saw the point of prestiging. It wasn't until later games where you were offered something for giving up your shit in the game. So in Call of Duty 4, I stayed unprestige until right before Modern Warfare 3 came out. When Modern Warfare 3 announced prestige tokens will be awarded to people who prestige in all the prior games, I decided to go back and prestige the one time just to make sure I got that fucking token. It was pointless, but fuck it, I got that token, didn't I? But as for the online game itself, I said this many times, the game has serious flaws that piss you off. There's no question about that. But you accepted these since the game came out in 2007. They didn't know half the shit they know now. I mean, just look at all the stupid shit they had in the game. Juggernaut with more health, Martyrdom, Last Stand, no host migration. If some asshole in the room decides to rage quit, no best host locator that games have now. Instead, first person in the room was the host. And depending on who was the host, you could either have an awesome connection or a shitty connection. I knew that playing with my European friends, that if they got host, I would struggle. If I got host, they would struggle. It was a constant 3 to 4 bar battle with each other. The game also had the helicopter glitch where you could earn your chopper, die, then call it in again and get a bunch more kills to earn another chopper. The maps were also just built for spawn trap. I mean, shit, just try to get out of a corner on ambush, downpour, wet work against a highly skilled team working together. There was no way that shit was happening. Now, in all fairness, these are things Infinity Ward didn't get feedback until the game was already out. Because after all, this was the first blockbuster console success for the studio, and as we have seen, it started the craze for the franchise. Call of Duty 2 received its share of acclaim when it came out to 360 as a launch title, but we're talking a 15 million sales total difference here between the two games. Sure, there were mistakes. Sure, they had shit in the game that annoyed the living fuck out of people, but as your first major console hit, being outside the comfort zone of World War II as all the prior games, you can't blame Infinity Ward too much for these mistakes. At the same time, in making these mistakes, there are a number of things that people also blame them for. However, looking back, people realize these shits weren't that bad. Mainly because future games made even bigger mistakes. You know, things like Frag 3 were railed against. I mean, absolutely hated against that shit. Meanwhile, future games, it gave you the chance to replenish your shit infinitely. RPGs were railed against as a perk back in the day. Meanwhile, future games made that shit into secondary weapons which you could replenish anytime you wanted. And the best part was if you took a noob tube in the game, you disabled perk 1, which where all the fucking explosives were in the first place. Looking back, people initially considered these mistakes, but when you look at them now, they certainly don't seem as bad as the shit we had in the follow-up games. The sad thing is that the future games made mistakes that should have been learned from this game. When someone makes a mistake, you get a pass the first time. Fine, we all make mistakes, that's understandable. But when you make the same mistake over and over again, that's when you realize someone is fucking incompetent. Infinity Ward made mistakes with this game. Fine, you can understand that and you can forgive that. But their mistakes after this game, that's when you start to realize they're not as competent as people initially thought they were. This game offered things that just weren't on the market with other games. 16 maps to start the game. That's not including the DLC, but 16 from the very start. Rewards for kill streaks, although we've learned to just let the assholes camp for kills and shit like that. Different perks on your character to make them unique. Challenges that kept you doing things like headshots or sniping or RPGs. Different game modes for more points. And that's on top of the action being incredibly smooth, incredibly fluid, and fast-paced. Compared to future Call of Duty games, the multiplayer was simple. A decent perk set that wasn't dependent on the rock, paper, scissors shit that I've mentioned in future videos. A list of guns that felt balanced, you know, compared to having one gun that outclasses almost everything in every Call of Duty after this. And those satisfying moments where you know you just had a montage moment. Oh man, from the 4 kill grenades on a flag to a triple headshot collateral to start a bomb. It was always a good feeling to get one of those moments. I mean, even to this day, when I go back and I played this game, the music for the menus brought back so many memories. So many times I had fun with this game, or raged, you know, depending on how shit went. All those times I got to play with my friends online, no matter how good or how bad. Playing with friends is what always made multiplayer fun. Now, one last thing I have to mention, and that would be the campaign. Oh, you can't forget about the campaign in this game. In 2007, this shit was awesome. Unquestionably an awesome campaign. Over time, though, much like multiplayer, you notice the little things that this game did completely feel dated nowadays. But, I mean, we are dealing with a 7-year-old game now. In 2007, the shit was spectacular. 2014, not so much. The age has not done this game any favors. Think of it like Cameron Diaz. Looked great in her prime, but after aging, she looks all fucked up. With Call of Duty moving away from the World War II narrative, where you knew what the outcome was going to be, this time around, we get a unique story, and it allowed the writers and creators more freedom in their storylines. And the story back then was excellent. Yes, it did jump around a bit, and it has some plot hole issues as to how Captain Price was getting his intel and whatnot, but the game started on a high note with the invasion of the cargo ship, which swayed in the water, changing how you aim and whatnot, and then the game split into pretty much 2 campaigns, with the all-out war in the Middle East with the constant explosions and gunfires and all that crap, then back to the SAS missions, which required a bit more tactical precision since you were outgunned in almost every single fight. Of course, they throw in the surprise nuke that caught all the players off guard, the McMillan missions, which I'll talk about in a minute, the hunt for Zakhaev at the end of the game. It was an awesome campaign and a story. Very gameplay, set up by a quality story and narrative, and some pretty decent graphics at the time. This was the first Call of Duty to use shading and light transitions, as well as unique backgrounds that didn't repeat themselves. Well, except for multiplayer, where the building on Crossfire is the same exact building as the corner one on Strike. Unquestionably, for its time period, this was an excellent campaign compared to the other games on the market. But probably the peak of excellence in their campaign was helping McMillan across Pripyat, Ukraine. I can't help but think, how does a company who created this amazing piece of the campaign fuck up all their future campaigns after this scene? Holy shit, for starters, they nailed what Pripyat looks like. Utterly fucking nailed it, man. From the hotel to the eerie Ferris wheel, even the building complexes that were somehow made to look identical to what they look like nowadays. Infinity Ward did their research. They utterly fucking nailed the scenery for those missions. When the mission starts initially, you get to be in the ghillie suit for the first time. You get to use stealth for the majority of the mission. And of course, the best part, having to sit in the field with the tanks coming, rolling by you, was a shit-inducing scene if there ever was one. I remember dropping down and thinking, who thought of putting something so badass in this fucking game? It was perfect. Combined with the all gillied up level with 1 shot, 1 kill, then the fight at the Ferris wheel, you could make a very good argument those were the best 2 missions in any Call of Duty game to date, ever. Doesn't matter the age of the game, those missions could easily be considered the very best Call of Duty has offered us all these years in terms of campaign missions. However, as great as those missions were for Call of Duty 4, it does come with its share of flaws like any other video game. The biggest complaint, obviously, is the AI. At the time, most games kept up this clown car effect of enemies and shit like that. You know, we need to advance beyond a certain magical point to make the enemy stop spawning. You could kill an enemy only for another one to spawn right in his exact same place, and it was fucking annoying. You know, the biggest pains were the US military missions through the Middle East where you had RPG motherfucker after RPG motherfucker respawn. Oh man, until you got to that magical invisible point on the map where they won't respawn, it was fucking stupid and annoying. Now, speaking of stupid, the AI was predictably horrible. I mean, since this game came out well before Killzone 2 blew the roof off video games with their smart AI, Call of Duty AI was all sorts of stupid. The enemies predictably stick their heads out of the same exact spot, or they don't even bother with cover. I mean, why sit in cover when you can easily stand out in the open just to get killed? You know, I just can't imagine who thought this was good AI programming. Another point of contention, and this happens in almost all video games, Why does the main character have to do everything? I mean, no, really. So, get on the machine gun and take out the chopper. So, grab the C4 and blow up the tank. So, cut this fence right here so we can all climb through on the other side. So, put charge on the other door, blow it up, walk through the room, kill the bad guys, and while you're at the fridge, get me a motherfucking sandwich. I can understand if you're playing a game solo with no help. I can understand if you're partially doing the important events with the AI helping in other areas, but in this game, you literally do every fucking thing for them. I know Soper's the grunt of the group and he needs to earn his stripes and all. Come the fuck on. You mean to tell me Captain Price can't do shit on his fucking own? You mean to tell me that not one other idiot can open a fucking door for themselves? Do they want me to wipe their asses too while they take a shit? But regardless of how shitty the campaigns are, for the majority of hardcore Call of Duty players, the campaigns are irrelevant. It's the overwhelming majority of people buy this game for multiplayer. As sad as that is, people could care less about the campaigns these days, mainly because we can finish this shit in 5 to 6 hours tops. Meanwhile, you can spend that amount of time just ranking up your character online and get to like level 15 or some shit like that. But you have to credit Call of Duty 4 for being the game that started this craze for the series. People who bought it recommended it to friends, and then recommended it to their friends, who turned word of mouth into a buying frenzy, which turned into the fad that people wanted to get in on. There's no question Call of Duty 4 has flaws. It has its share of problems that were never fixed or addressed, but just being the start of the Call of Duty craze is what made this game so important. Even with the bullshit in the game, I can play it for hours, well, if I have a decent connection. Because you can forgive the issues Infinity Ward created because they didn't fucking know any better. Future games, no, they get no forgiveness, but this game does for being the first major Call of Duty hit on consoles all those years ago. Anyways, it's hard to believe, but this really quite possibly is the last time Call of Duty 4 will ever be on my channel. After all these years of enjoyment, it is really time to say goodbye to a game that gave me so many great memories. But in saying goodbye to one game, I get to say hello to tomorrow's game for the first time ever on my channel. I will finally get my chance to tear World of War that asshole it deserves. Since the day I've started my channel in 2009 until now, I have never posted a World at War rant on my channel. I have exactly one video from World at War, and that was a link to a friend's video on another channel who recorded me bitching in the game. So I plan on tearing the roof off of this motherfucker tomorrow. Those who have been around long enough, you know my disdain for Treyarch, and it starts with tomorrow's video, which is easily gonna be the longest in the Goodbye PlayStation series. Oh, motherfucker, I have 6 years worth of ranting built up, and I get my one shot at it tomorrow. Just one chance to let it all out. So get your popcorn ready, have a Coke and a smile, because I'm about to tear this shit off tomorrow, man. Anyways, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. Tomorrow, World at War.